Hi everyone, this is Michael Butterman, Music Director of the Boulder Philharmonic Orchestra, which is going to be getting the new year, 2011, off to a rocking start, pun intended, on January 15th at Mackey Auditorium. Music of Sergei Rachmaninoff, his marvelous Piano Concerto No. 3, but also music of rocker Frank Zappa, his bebop tango for orchestra. Zappa's was, I think without question, one of the more versatile and flexible musical minds of the last 50 years. As a performer and as a composer, he blurred the lines between rock and jazz and classical music. His orchestral music is relatively unknown, but it's very original and sophisticated, while at the same time being fun and inventive. We're pairing Zappa's tango with a work by the king of tango composers, Argentinian composer Astor Piazzolla. His wonderful tangazo is full of colorful orchestral touches and beautiful sentimental moments. But what you'll remember is the work's irresistible rhythmic groove. And then after the intermission, the main event, the Rach of the program, music by Sergei Rachmaninoff, his brilliant Piano Concerto No. 3. Now, all season long, we have been celebrating Boulder and all that makes it such a special community. One of the ingredients that contributes to that, without question, is the presence of the University of Colorado, which brings world-class teachers, scholars, and artists to our community. One of them, the wonderful pianist David Korevaar, will be joining us on the 15th of January and is also joining me here right now to share some insights into the program. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Michael. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to hear from you. This is a concerto that, if it's not my very favorite, it's certainly one of my very favorite pieces to conduct. There's so much emotion. I think there's so much expression, so much opportunity for give and take between the soloist and the orchestra. I'm wondering if it is as much fun to play as it is to conduct.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those concertos where there's such collaboration between soloist and orchestra, almost like chamber music in a way, lots of stuff going on, wonderful places where the winds and piano are doubling on lines and things like this. It just are always a pleasure.
You mentioned chamber music. I know you play a great deal of chamber music. Does that inform your approach to playing with an orchestra?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to actually, when you're playing a concerto, to work with the orchestra, to work with the conductor. It's one of the things. The other thing that's marvelous is when these things work and you get these great colors from the ensembles that you're playing with the orchestra. I mean, the instrument sounds different in that context.
And there is a give and take. Unlike some concertos where the orchestra is purely subsidiary, in this case there are moments when the orchestra is certainly taking the lead and the piano is providing some sort of commentary and supporting the orchestra.
Yeah. I have to say, of course, what sticks in my mind about this concerto is that I could never get over the beginning of this concerto. I think it's one of the most brilliant things ever written. The piano states the opening theme in simple octaves, just... And it's the most magnificent thing to hear this, with the underpinning of the orchestra doing these gently rhythmic things, marching along, and the piano playing this almost like Russian liturgical music.
Yeah, it's very much,
it's a great striking opening. It just invites the audience right in.
The wonderful thing about his music when you are studying and working on it is that you see that it's not just all there on the surface. There's so much detail and so much. It's so tightly constructed.
Right.
These pieces.
It's amazing to me just to look at this whole concerto because he clearly took such care over it. And the themes in all of the movements are very closely related to each other. The first movement theme comes back at the end of the second movement. It transformed into a waltz, which is one of my favorite moments in the whole concerto.
Absolutely.
Where that opening becomes... This kind of thing is going on throughout the piece. I think for me the most striking thing is the way he uses his second theme. Which the first time we hear it in the first movement, it's stated by the orchestra, and answered by the piano. And shortly thereafter, that becomes a lyrical theme.
Same idea, but
Same
in a totally
idea.
different character.
That's right. And that's
Yeah.
within the context of just maybe 30 seconds of music.
Exactly.
He's done that.
Exactly.
By the time we get to the last movement, the whole middle section of the last movement is this set of variations on the same theme. But by the time we get there, it's become this wonderful scherzando. Etc. So great transformations.
Absolutely, yeah. Talking about thematic transformations, a technique that composers like Liszt, for example, pioneered in many ways. And I did want to ask you, Liszt is another one of those pianist composers.
Right.
Obviously, a brilliant artist as a performer as well as a composer. And I'm wondering whether, as a pianist, when you play music of Liszt or Rachmaninoff, for example, do you find that there are ways that the music lies?
Absolutely. We could generalize that way out because almost all the great composers that pianists play were pianists. We have this advantage, I guess, over everybody else. And so the way the music fits under the hand is quite personal.
I'm thinking of Rachmaninoff, who has, if I'm not mistaken,
he had large hands. That's right.
Exactly.
Interesting there because if you listen to Rachmaninoff's own recordings, he's not playing those big chords together. He rolls them all because that was the style of the time. So even though he has the big hands and he can grab these immense things, this kind of thing all over the place. The big hands are great, but they're not necessarily necessary to play the music, which is a good thing because mine aren't very big.
Well, they seem more than up to the task as far as I'm concerned. So, David, we are anticipating this with great excitement and looking forward to the performance. It'll be an evening to remember. It's January 15th at Mackey Auditorium, 7:30 p.m. Rock and roll, we're calling it. We'll see you at Mackey.